Hey everybody, it's Taki117 here, back with Taki's tutorial series. So, last episode I showed you how to build a rocket to get into orbit. Now, this time I need to fly by the moon, but I will get to that here in a minute. What I'm going to do is, well, let's see, I need science from space. I'll get to that eventually. But what I want to do is, here we go. Why will it not let me? Oh, because I already have two. Okay. So, let's go ahead and get some science data from space around Kerbin. Actually, let's see if I have something already in orbit that I can commandeer for this mission. I don't believe I do. Head into the tracking station. I do not. But here are the symbols for some of those contracts that I have. And this tells you where they are, which is nice. No, we're not going to worry about those now. I'm going to build a very simple rocket. It's called a sounding rocket. And all it's going to do is it's going to go up, it's going to take some readings. Oh, that's cool. So I'm actually going to make this a sample return capsule. It's not really a good way to do that with my current technology. So, new plan. Just gonna send up a command pod with parachutes. Parachutes, where are those? Now, between episodes, I did a lot of experiments around the Kerbal Space Center, and the reason for that is each building is its own biome, including the crawlerway between the vehicle assembly building and the launch pad. So you can take a pod or a Kerbal and just run around the Kerbal Space Center, collect all the science from right there. You know, it's there, it's available to you, and there's a lot of science just around the Kerbal Space Center. Alright. Which is why I have all these new parts. But anyway, that's beside the point. Let's, that works. Give me some stability here. Okay. So, because I just need science from space, this is going to be a very, very simple rocket. There's plenty of delta V to get me there. I'm actually going to throttle this back a little bit to about 1.2, just so I don't go completely all over the place. And also so I don't go too fast and explode on the way up. Because that's generally not a good thing. Jeb, back at the pilot seat. Oops. So I completely messed my staging up there, and I actually got lucky that these engines have a fairly high tolerance. I should have had my engine and my launch clamps stage at the same time. But anyway, as I was saying about biomes, there are different biomes on Kerbin, and each biome gives you more science. It's not just the Kerbal Space Center, but there's, you know, the ocean is a biome, you have the shores, you have grasslands over here, there's mountains, there's highlands, which are fairly close to mountains. I'm going to bring up my orbit info here. There we go. Mostly just to make sure that I actually make it to space. I mean, how unfortunate would that be if you know, I have this rocket and I don't even make it to space, which looks like I might not. I might. Yeah, each building in the Kerbal Space Center is done by them. You know, there's R&D building, the flagpole, the astronaut complex. Everything that I pointed out in the first episode is a biome. 50, 60, 70. Awesome. So I am going to reach space, which is good. So let's just go ahead and speed up time just a little bit. Beautiful galaxy there. This is not the Milky Way, by the way. I'm not entirely sure what Starfield squad decided to use for this, but it is certainly not the Milky Way. Alright, so we're in space. We're going to go ahead and take a crew report. Doesn't matter if I actually get science or not. But I cannot do an EVA yet, which is fine. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to adjust my parachute down to let's do 0.5. I like 0.5 because it's about 5 kilometers in altitude. Go ahead and ditch my booster there. Let's point. There it works. We're going to come down. And that's going to complete our science mission. And then we'll talk about aircraft. Aircraft are really, really difficult to do right. Now, of course, this is at 4 times regular speed. So this is going a little fast. 7, 6, 5, 4. Yep, 3. About 3.5, 4 kilometers for 0.5, or an atmospheric pressure of 0.5 atmospheres. Sea level is 1 atmosphere, so atmospheric pressure decreases with altitude from 1 down to 0 logarithmically, meaning that it's not a linear change. So this is why I like 0.5. It deploys right around 4 kilometers indicated altitude, which is right about where I want it to be, so that at 1 kilometer the parachute will deploy. So that completes one of our contracts, and we can do a focused observational survey. Let's do this one. So it's best when doing surveys to have an aircraft. So we're going to make it look kind of like an aircraft. So we have our cockpit here. I'm going to put a structural panel there. I need some wings. There we go, these work. These work nicely. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm doing the wings the way I am. And it's mainly for stability, but again, I'll get into that once I'm finished building my aircraft. I need... Oops, that's not what I need. There we go. Oh, that's unfortunate. I don't really have any other tail connectors. So, the key forces of flight. The 4 key forces are lift, drag, thrust, and weight or gravity. So, before we put our engines on, I'm going to actually make a little bit of an adjustment here. Not quite where I wanted that. There we go. I do not want yaw or roll. This one I do not want pitch or roll. So, to rotate parts around, and the reason I'm having to fiddle with this is it's different. You use the W, A, S, D, Q, and E keys, and that rotates the parts on the 3 individual axes. As you can see, at least with wing parts, it's very difficult to get right. I do not want yaw on those. So, before I add my engines, I'm going to turn on my center of mass indicator. And that tells me my center of mass is there. And I'm also going to turn on my center of lift indicator. Now my center of lift is way back there. It's kind of a problem. So you want your center of mass and your center of lift to be fairly close together. Now the reason they're so far apart is because I have this very long tail section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of that. And I'm going to put another structural fuselage. Put my fuel tank back. See? Now, you want to have your center of lift behind your center of mass, but not too far behind your center of mass. There we go, nice little short tail there. So let's see if I can... Oops. There we go. Do that. Actually, I'm going to... Oh wow, that's even worse. You want to build something that looks realistic. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. But it should look kind of like an actual aircraft. There we go, that looks good. And then I put these on here, I want 2 of them. This looks much better. There. So, we sort of pretend like the center of lift here is a string attached to our aircraft and is going to be lifted by that string. So we want it to be fairly close to the center of mass. Now I need some tiny fuel tanks. And here all I'm doing is I'm building my engine. I'm not worried about, you know, having my center of mass be perfect yet. Let's see, I need some basic jet engine. There we go. And then I need this small circular intake. Just like that. And this is going to change our center of mass ever so slightly. Especially because I'm adding 2 of them. So I can just kind of fine-tune where it's going to be. Right there looks good. Now comes the fun part, adjusting your center of thrust, which is another very important part. Now, as you can see, my center of thrust is very slightly below my center of mass, which means as my engine thrust forward, it's going to naturally want to lift my nose, which is perfectly fine. Now, if they were in line, let's see if I can rotate them ever so slightly. See, now they're in line, that means it's just going to fly straight. I don't necessarily want that. And actually, I like the way that looks. This is going to be a very simple aircraft. Very simple aircraft. Now I need landing gear. Now you want your rear landing gear to be slightly behind your center of mass, but not so far back that they cause an issue when you try to take off. Let's see. Oop, not quite there. Actually, I do want them there. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my landing gear mostly level. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be exact. That works. But I do think I am going to move them in with the move tool. And I do want to turn off there we go. I'm going to move them down just a little bit. Maybe a little more. There we go. That looks good. Now, the reason for this is because your rear landing gear are going to act as a fulcrum for the rest of your aircraft. And what that means is that your aircraft is going to rotate around them when you try and take off. Now, I'm also going to lock the steering of my forward gear because I don't need to taxi. And I'm going to lower my aircraft to see how it sits on the runway. That looks good. So, I'm going to put Valentina in the pilot seat. Looks like a pretty good aircraft, actually. And we're going to launch. So, my contract is to take a crew report below a certain altitude over a certain location. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set my brakes while I talk for a moment here. So, I'm going to go to my map view and see there's the contract I chose. I'm going to click it and I'm going to activate navigation. And what that does, you can kind of see it on my nav ball here, is it gives a little indicator as to the direction I need to fly to get there. And I'm going to be awesome and turn my lights on. I like that they have the little nose lights there. And anyway, I digress. We're going to turn on stability assist. Now my brakes are on. I'm going to go ahead and turn those off. I'm going to activate my engines. Now they're going to take a little bit to get up to thrust. Get up to full thrust specifically. I'm just going to run down the runway. Now this plane should take off all on its own. Maybe? Maybe? No? Okay. It wants to, so I'm just going to pitch up, and away we go. Now, I ran off the edge of the runway. That's fine. I'm going to throttle back just a little bit. But now comes the fun part. Actually flying to my destination. Now, you'll notice I'm banking and I'm pulling up. I'm not using my rudder a whole lot. It's really only there to keep me stable, but you can see the marker where I need to fly is coming into view here, which means I'm turning the correct direction. And hopefully it's not too far out. But the important part is you want to bank your aircraft as you turn so that your wings are doing most of the work and not your rudder. And we're actually going to throttle down to 1/4 throttle, because having two of these engines on such a fairly light aircraft is a little much, actually. Now, Kerbal Space Program doesn't necessarily model lift exactly right. What that means is you have to have a positive angle of attack for it to model lift. If I turn on my aerodynamic forces, you can see, you know, the blue arrows, the blue spikes are my main lifting surfaces, and the yellow spikes are my control surfaces. And you can see my wings are providing a lot of lift. And then as I approach zero angle of attack, that lift goes down just a little bit. And that's because, you know, Kerbal Space Program does not model lift appropriately. Oh, here we go. I'm entering sector LG0LV. Right on time. So, I'm going to go ahead and take this crew report. And there we go. I've completed that contract. I don't have to do anything else, but I want to. So I'm actually going to try to land this at the island runway. See if I can make it over there. Now, I'm flying with mouse and keyboard. Those of you that have flight sticks are in much better positions than I am to be doing this. That's also another reason why my movements are so jerky, is because I'm trying to fly with a mouse and a keyboard. It doesn't work a whole lot. I mean, it works fine. You can certainly fly an aircraft that way, but you're going to have jerky motions. It's not going to be smooth, it's not going to be easy, and I also don't have independent rudder control, and what that means is I can't adjust both my rudder and my bank angle at the same time. So, you know, I'm having to bank a little bit, adjust my rudder, bank a little bit, and adjust my rudder, and that's providing that jerky motion. I am going to throttle up a little bit here just to make this go a little faster. There is a runway over on the island. It's called the Island Runway. It looks very similar to the Kerbal Space Program runway, but it's a lot harder to see at night. Kind of wish I'd waited to do this during the day, but you know, I wanted to get that mission, that contract done. So I'm going to slow down again here. So the three things to remember when approaching a runway is speed, your rate of descent, and your angle. So if you're going too fast, or if you are coming down too fast, you're probably gonna end up crashing, and I might end up crashing. But if I crash, you know, it happens. Unfortunately, I will lose Valentina. Maybe. I have had successful crashes where I have not lost Kerbals, so any crash you can walk away from. It looks like my angle to the runway is a little off, so I'm just going to adjust. And you want to make sure you do this as far out as you can. You can see the runway there. So I'm now descending fairly rapidly, cutting my throttle even more than I was before. Okay, woo, there we go. Alright, here we go. Now, it's been a while since I've done this, especially here. Alright. So I'm coming down. I'm going to do something called, I call it a flare. I believe the official term is a rollout, where I'm going to come down. And you can see my airspeed is increasing. I'm actually going to pull up. That's going to decrease my airspeed quite a bit. Alright, cut my engines. So they take a little bit to spool down. Oh, this is not going to end well, maybe. But I didn't exactly... Whoa, dear. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Oops. Hey! I landed! So, like I said, any landing you can walk away from is a good one in my book. As you can see, landing is hard. Even in daytime, it's hard. But Valentina survived. There she is. So I'm going to do an EVA report so you can get some science from here. Oh, hey, look, there's a wheel over there. I'm going to go ahead and take the data. I'm going to store my data. I'm going to do another EVA report because I can. Oh, hey, that's a new thing. I can climb. Cool. And grab on. Now, do a crew report from here. And there we go. Oh, I guess my engine is still running. Oops. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I'm Taki117, and remember, it's only rocket science.